Good job, Chris. Thank you. Thank you for coming. All right, well, at this time, we'd like to introduce the Detroit Council of the Navy League. Mark?
Sure.
First of all, thank you all for the warm welcome. Thanks for inviting me to be a part of our remembrance today, sharing in our nation's remembering that date of infamy. First of all, how many World War II veterans are present here tonight? One back there, two. I want to take, and could you please help me to introduce this gentleman?
Yes, this is Jack Morrison, Army veteran, drafted and joined in 41. Was on help to, they call it in the Philippines, liberate them. Regaining the end of the enemy after that, if you read about the battle, I think most of us have. And he's 96 years old, or young.
To thank.
You gotta talk into the mic.
Well, I'm getting there.
You're talking to the mic. We can't hear you.
I want to introduce the other World War II veteran in the room. I am privileged to call this gentleman friend. I've known Ray now for, it seems like a long time, but it's only been about 2 years. Lieutenant J.G. Raymond Owen, seated over here next to my wife. Would you please stand up? Ray was a naval aviator in World War II, and he'll blush a little bit. But I love telling the story that while serving on the USS Wasp, he had one of his wings nearly completely shot off the aircraft. And with just the aileron, he was able to put the plane back on the deck of the USS Wasp. Just extraordinary human beings. Extraordinary. So thank you again. Well, my name is Mark Ernst. I am a member of the Metropolitan Detroit Council of the Navy League. I'm going to share a little information about the Navy League with you tonight. I'm also the recently elected secretary, and I'm so recent, I don't even know what it means or what I'm supposed to do, but I was graciously invited by Roy and the council to come and share tonight with you. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the Navy League, and I'm going to take you on a very brief journey. Take about 10 minutes. Let's start with December. What does December mean to us? To those of us in the room, it means Christmas, but it also means taking a moment to think about a disastrous time in our nation's history. And I think that the gift that we can give to the other generations that have come behind us is to help them remember December 7th and understand what it meant, both to our country and to all of the family members, such as the gentleman joining us here tonight. These were 18, 19, 20-year-old young men and women who got up, left their homes, whether it be in the farm or in the city, to go fight an enemy that many hadn't even really heard of. So I'm going to share this short journey, and we're going to start with the fall of 1901. We're going to go to December of 1907, then December 7th of 1941, and then we will make our way back to this evening, December 7th, 2016. In September of 1901, President McKinley was assassinated. Teddy Roosevelt, at age 42, ascended to the office of President of the United States. He was at that time the youngest president in our nation's brief history. Now you talk about a country that was nervous about a new president. I think that Roosevelt probably presented many of the same concerns that we hear today. He wrote a book called The Naval War of 1812. To this day, that book is still an authoritative and standard study of the War of 1812. He also had previously served as Assistant Secretary of the Navy. Teddy was one of the original, and it's okay to clap, United States Army Rough Riders in the Spanish-American War. Teddy was also the only U.S. president to have received the Congressional Medal of Honor. So, in addition to remembering Pearl Harbor each December, we can now add to our remembrance. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the Navy League, because Teddy Roosevelt is where it all started. The Navy League of the United States, commonly referred to as the Navy League, was started in 1902. It was started at the suggestion of Teddy Roosevelt, who, having served as Assistant Secretary of the Navy, was very passionate about America's Navy and our fleet. So, what is the Navy League? We are an international association who advocates for a strong and forward deployed Navy. We also are an advocate for the Marine Corps, for the Coast Guard, and the U.S. Merchant Marines. So it's more than just the Navy, it's all of the sea services and those services that operate on all navigable waters, including the Great Lakes. Why do we do this? The Navy League provides a powerful voice for a stronger sea service to the House, the Senate, and to the executive branch, as well as the American people. That is one of our missions. The Navy League is comprised of over 50,000 civilians in over 220 councils throughout the world. And as I read that number, 50,000 people is nothing. We should all be members of the Navy League, regardless of the service that you may have served in, because we are the voice to our legislators, to our president. How do we accomplish this? Educational programming. The United States is a maritime nation whose economic and security interests are intimately linked to the freedom of the seas. That's part of what we advocate. That's part of what our Navy does, is keep the freedom of the seas. There's three basic missions to enhance the morale of both active duty personnel in the sea services, as well as to support family members. And for those that are family members in here who have had a loved one deployed, you know how challenging and difficult it is when you are home and you are alone. We also inform our national legislature, our president, and the American public. We also support and inspire youth through programs such as the Sea Cadet Corps, the National Navy Junior ROTC program, and the Young Marines. Why is this so important? Who cares? What is it about what we do? Why is it relevant? 70% of the earth is covered with water. 80% of the population of this planet live near a navigable waterway. 90% of international commerce is accomplished on navigable waterways. Now I'm going to ask you to participate. I want you to raise your hand and keep it up if any of the products that I name are items that you have used or purchased in your daily lives. Cell phones, televisions, computers, refrigerators, stoves, microwaves, gasoline, oil, cars, foreign or domestic. Anybody buying pearls this Christmas for their lady? And don't answer that question, I don't want to ruin any Christmas surprises. Prescription medication, clothing. Anybody have Quaker oatmeal for breakfast this morning besides my wife? How about fish or other seafood? Okay. Teddy Roosevelt understood the idea of freedom of the seas. So coming up with some have called it a stunt, to show the need for America's naval strength, in December of 1907, he sent a fleet of 16 of our battleships to circumnavigate the globe. It was a show of strength, it was a show of flexibility, and it was certainly intended to impress the rest of the world with the United States naval strength. Now, as we know in our country, politics and the respective presidential administrations can change, influence, and impact the missions of our military. So let's fast forward to 1912. Has anyone ever heard of Dusko Popov? Has anyone ever heard of Popov? The vodka, right? Okay. Well, Dusko Popov was born July 10th, 1912, in what we now know as Yugoslavia. He was born into an aristocratic, wealthy Serbian family. Remember this point because not only is it relevant and important, but there's a test afterwards. Now, he spoke fluent German. He had German friends in many high places. He secretly despised the Nazis, mainly because of bad experiences and brushes he had with Nazis while he was attending university in Freiburg. Now, Popov earned a PhD in law where he returned to Dubrovnik, briefly opening a law practice and becoming a lawyer. When an old university friend of his approached him, a guy named Johann Jebsen, he says to Popov, "Hey, I got a great idea. Why don't we become spies for the German Abwehr," which was their military. So they decide they're both going to become German spies. Both were aristocrats, worldly. Frankly, they would have fit into any Eastern Ivy League fraternity. Wine, women, and cavorting was their calling card. Now, to Dusko Popov, if being a spy for one country is fun, being a spy for two must be even more fun. So, through a series of meetings and discussions, he becomes a double agent for both the British government and the Germans. Now, Popov is a double agent, but not his friend Jebsen. Jebsen remains simply a spy for the Germans. Popov becomes known to his British handlers as Tricycle. His MI6 handlers tell him, stay close to, stay in contact with, and cooperate with Johnny Jebsen. We want you to be connected to him. Popov was famous for his playboy lifestyle while carrying out perilous wartime missions on behalf of the British. But to the rest of the world who didn't know, he just looked like a cavorting playboy. In March 1941, the Germans were concerned that he had both blown his cover and, here in America, the American-German Bund movement was too obvious, it was too large. They were everywhere, they were in the newspapers. They were not good intelligence assets for the Germans. So they decided to send Popov to America. Now, one of the things that they wanted him to gather when he came to America was reflected on this new spy tool called a microdot. And on the microdot was a list of targets here in the United States the Germans wanted information on. And one of the first items on this list, which is contained in the book that I have here, was information on Pearl Harbor. Why would the Germans be interested in Pearl Harbor? No, they hadn't seen the movie Animal House yet. So, he decides on his way to America, he's going to stop in Lisbon, Spain, which is sort of a hotbed of spies. And so he wants to connect with Johnny Jepson again. So he heads to Lisbon. It's now August. Jepson and Popov connect, and Jepson can't wait to tell Popov about his last mission that he was on for the Germans. He says, I was in Italy. I was meeting with the German, the Japanese, and the Italian military attachés. Wow, why? Well, turns out the Japanese wanted every bit of information they could gather on the British attack on the Bay of Taranto just a year earlier, where the British sunk half of the Italian fleet in a bay that was only 33 feet deep. Does that sound familiar to anybody? So, he then heads off to America. It's now August. He gets to New York City. He's met by his FBI handler. He checks into the Waldorf Astoria. He is attracted to 3 American movie stars who are likewise very attracted to him, and he's got the financial wherewithal to live a very lavish lifestyle. So he's drinking champagne, he's staying at the Waldorf Astoria, he's photographed and seen with these starlets, but he is supposed to meet with J. Edgar Hoover in order to turn the information over to Hoover about the Japanese interest in Pearl Harbor and the Bay of Taranto. Well, he gets in there, and J. Edgar Hoover hates him. Absolutely can't stomach him, thinks he's a playboy that is wasting government money, living at the Waldorf Astoria, etc. So he takes the information and he dismisses Popov out of hand. Well, we know what happened next, don't we? December 7th, 1941, the Japanese replicate right on down to the wood fins that they fitted on the torpedoes to allow the shallow torpedoing of our ships at Pearl Harbor. J. Edgar Hoover, and this is now sort of historical urban legend, supposedly never shared this information with Roosevelt about the attack on Pearl Harbor. We, the Americans, didn't realize about this list that Popov had in his pocket until the document was declassified by the British government in 1972. So when we talk about Pearl Harbor and we remember this day and we get together with friends and family and we have occasions like this to just be thankful, please go out and tell a young person about this story, because they're all going to grow up to be government employees, military service people, and we need to learn lessons from history or we are doomed to repeat history. Now I have one last closing Christmas gift for all of you, and this will make you the hit of all your holiday cocktail parties. Who is a James Bond fan? Dusko Popov served in the British MI6 with another MI6 agent by the name of Ian Fleming. Who do you think James Bond was based on? Merry Christmas. Thank you very much.
Great job. Appreciate that.